Spoilers ahead. Johnny's Halloween Picks. Psychological Edition.
Barbarian's a 2022 horror movie directed by Zach Kreger and starring Georgina Campbell, Bill Skarsgård, Justin Long, and Richard Brake. Some people praised this movie for constantly wrong-footing the audience, and other people felt the final act undid everything the first two acts built up. Let's take a look at the plot of Barbarian.
The plot.
The movie opens with Tess Marshall renting a house in Detroit for the night so she can attend a job interview the next day. When she arrives at the house, she finds Keith there, who's also rented the house through a different app. And to make the story happen, there's a medical convention in town and a storm raging outside, so she's got no option but to spend the night. Naturally, things start out awkward, but over time, with the help of a few glasses of wine, they get rather cozy. Keith insists Tess take the bed while he sleeps on the couch, and they nearly have a moment right before bedtime. But it dissipates. And if I nearly had a moment with Tess right before bedtime in our Airbnb rental, I'd have been all like,
"Are you usually this out of breath afterwards?"
So, I brought you in out of the rain, I gave you half of my wine, I insisted you take the bed, I made the bed for you after I did the laundry, and you're pointing out that I am out of shape. I am pretty sure the pillowcases are dry now. Why don't you pop down to the basement and grab them? You just tug on the rope and they'll pop right out. In the middle of the night, while Keith's on the couch, somebody opens Tess's bedroom door, but Keith says it wasn't him. So Tess makes it to her interview the following morning, and while she's there, she's issued the requisite horror movie warning about the place she's staying. And in keeping with horror movie rules, she ignores the warning, which suits us to the ground because the movie would have ended if she didn't. But as soon as she returns to the house, she's chased and yelled at by a local homeless man, who she barely escapes on her way back in. And now terrified by the neighborhood, she packs her things to leave, but she needs to use the ladies' room before she goes. And wouldn't you know it, there's no toilet paper left. So she heads to the basement where she finds loads of it. But the basement door closes over and locks her in without her phone. And she has the keys to the front door with her as well, meaning Keith won't be able to get back in as long as she's stuck down there. It doesn't take long for her to find a hidden door leading to a secret corridor. And things inside don't look very inviting at all. Keith comes back shortly after and he goes down to inspect the place himself, and I'm not really sure why. When he fails to come back upstairs, Tess goes back down to find him, and I'm not sure why, twice. When she goes beyond the room she found the first time, she finds something even worse further down the hall. Now faced with the option of leaving or going down deeper to investigate Keith's screaming, Tess makes the necessary horror movie choice that nobody would make in real life. But again, we're happy enough she did. She eventually finds Keith, but while they're arguing about which way to get out, Keith's head is pulverized against the wall by a big, scary monster woman. We jump back 2 weeks to meet AJ, who's a sitcom actor. And AJ's just been Me Too'd over allegations he was inappropriate with a co-star. And under pressure to cover his legal costs, AJ's forced to sell off his assets. And one of his assets is the very house the movie opened in. Once he's there, he ends up checking out the basement. He finds the hidden tunnels too. So he measures everything up and hopes he can add the square footage into the house's sale price. But his exploring leads him to a room with a TV playing a video about breastfeeding newborn babies. And while he's watching it, the big scary monster woman shows up and chases him. While he's running, he falls into a pit with Tess, and she's still alive. A quick flashback to Tim Burton's version of Detroit in the 1980s shows us Frank, the original house owner, played by Richard Brake, who used to abduct young girls and keep them in the elaborate underground labyrinth, where he'd make mothers of them. And then back in real time again, Tess tells AJ to shut the hell up because the big scary monster woman wants them to act as her children. And if he doesn't go along with it, they'll both be in trouble. But AJ's not really into it, so he refuses to drink from Mother's bottle. When he does that, Mother drags him away to the video room where she forces him to feed from her directly. And it's never the supermodels insisting on this sort of thing. is it? And while that's happening, Tess gets the hell out of Dodge in Detroit. The man who was shouting at her at the start of the movie helps her by pulling her out through the window because it turns out he was trying to warn her away from the house. Then he tells her she has to get out of the neighborhood before sunset because Mother likes to hunt at night. AJ takes the opportunity to make his move while Mother's gone after Tess, and he finds another filthy room, and this one's holding Frank, the original owner of the house. And Frank's not doing well at all. AJ discovers dozens of videotapes of Frank being terrible to dozens of women. And when AJ tells him the cops are on their way, Frank shoots himself in the head. And while that's happening, Tess gets her car going again and drives it right into Mother as she's running out of the house after her. Back downstairs, AJ lifts the gun and ventures out into the darkness, where he bumps into Tess and accidentally shoots her. But the two make their way out together, and without a car, they've no option but to hold up with the homeless man. But the relative safety is shortly lived as Mother comes busting through the wall, and she tears the man's arm off and beats him with it. And I imagine it takes a very strong constitution not to allow that to damage your ego. Mother's arrival sends Tess and AJ up a water tower to get away, and after dropping the gun like a fumbling Egypt, the pair are trapped at the top of the tower with no way of escaping. So AJ, the gentleman, pushes Tess over the side after she went to all the trouble of returning to rescue him from definite death. So Mother leaps off after her, still believing her to be one of her children. And when AJ goes down to check on them, he finds Tess is still alive. And while he's trying to justify his dick move, Mother springs back to life and tears his head apart, leaving Tess to kill her temporary surrogate mother with a gun, in a scene some people might consider touching and poignant. But I don't. And there you have it, folks, the plot to Barbarian. Let's go down in the basement and check out the good bits.
The good bits.
Fundamentally, Barbarian starts out on the right foot by grounding the story in something very relatable in the double booking concept. Lots of us have experienced this modern phenomenon. Those of us who haven't can definitely understand the kind of tension the situation would create. Then it drills down deeper into that tension by allowing Georgina Campbell and Bill Skarsgård to do what they're paid to do. Both of them were fantastic early on in creating the awkward, apprehensive atmosphere that would have resulted from any two intelligent strangers being thrust into a situation like this. Not only did they not know each other, they were in a stranger's house at the same time. And you felt that because they're both great actors. Skarsgård himself gives you no indication at any point he can be trusted, even though you really want to trust him and his big lovely eyes. And Campbell forces you to worry about her the same way you'd worry about a loved one in this kind of situation. And Justin Long's exactly as good as you'd expect Justin Long to be at portraying the overly confident, deeply unlikable guy he's so adept at playing. His situation's equally grounded in a reality most of us have seen played out in the last few years, albeit on television or social media. He's not a great guy. He's thoughtlessly plowed through his real estate investments in the same manner he's tried to plow through some of his female co-stars. And once again, when all the truth comes out, we're happy to see him get what he deserves in the end.
The shite bits.
As a quick side note, the cops were ridiculous, and shame on you for making them into cartoon bad guys when it really wasn't necessary. In reality, this situation's actually a believable one, given the current crime rates and the lack of staffing in many areas of America in 2022. I think it would have been twice as devastating to have portrayed the police as wanting to help but being unable to due to a lack of staffing. But I digress. My issue with Barbarian lies in the choices our two main characters make once they've discovered the room downstairs. And that brings us to the concept of suspension of disbelief. I am totally willing to buy the fact it had subterranean humanoid underground dwellers. In fact, I'm kind of a fan of that sort of thing. I'm also willing to buy Richard Brake somehow managed to eke out an existence down there for decades in the dank darkness. But I started shaking my head when it came time to accept Keith would have ventured that far down into the darkness after seeing the first room Tess told him about. And of course, that led to even more head shaking when Tess, the apparent wiser of the two, the one to yield the term nope, which is a clear declaration she's not going to venture any further into this unknown void, did exactly that. To get an audience to go along with your premise, your plot needs to be gripping and your characters believable. All sorts of things, fantastic and realistic, can happen in the story, but there has to be an overall consistency. That consistency is so important, all it takes is a single trip up to cause the head shaking that pulled me out of this movie. So, yes, to subterranean humanoid underground dwellers. and no to main characters making choices simply to move the story into its next phase.
The verdict.
So, should you watch Barbarian if you haven't seen it yet? Or should you just not go down to the basement, through the door that opens with a rope, beyond the gross room with the stained mattress and the video camera, into the hand-dug tunnels where there's cages and no lighting? Yes, absolutely. I love the pacing and the atmosphere of this movie, and my issues with the characters' decisions is a minor one. This had a creepy practical monster, it was stuffed full of tension, and the entire first half of the movie was a well-acted mystery. And there's Justin Long. And to me, that's become a thing to look forward to by itself. Until next time, folks. It's me, Johnny, from that thing you just watched. If you enjoyed it, go down there and smash me in the face to subscribe. And if you want to watch another thing, there's one right there. Do it!